Hi guys, welcome to my channel. First time viewers, always welcome. I'll be discussing the legend of the Charter Arms Revolver. And I have a Pitbull in 40 Smith & Wesson here to show you and the ins and outs and all about. There's some hot topics and hot spots to talk about with this particular design. And you're going to be excited to know. But anyway, back in the day, how they started out, law enforcement wanted a cheap undercover type revolver. That was a snub nose. And they were kind of expensive. So they wanted a cheaper alternative than the Smith & Wesson and the Colt of the day. Most of them were like Colt agents or what have you. They had the pencil barrel, and then they had the D frame. What you're seeing here is a C frame. This is an official police from the 1950s. It's really hard to see them in this type of condition. This is in, I'd say about a little bit more than 90%. But a Colt is ergonomic in all areas. It's a natural shooter. You don't have to really practice much with these guys to hit a target. And this was like the industry standard. And if you couldn't afford it, well, you got a Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson was a little bit more nose heavy, and it had machined parts. So, putting them things together was a lot faster than a Colt. Colt, you had to have some artisan, factory employee that had experience fit all those parts. And Colts quite often shot out of time, whereas the Smith & Wesson was a little bit more durable, and it's kind of uncommon to get 2,000 rounds through a revolver without it shooting out of time. But I suppose it could be possible, and correct me if I'm wrong, but usually like around that type of mileage, they're like really chattery. So most people rebuild them, and it was very common to rebuild revolvers. And a lot of the people approached revolvers like they were fixing watches. It was tedious and precise. Colt had the legendary Volt lockup, and they tried different things to ensure that cylinder would be really tight in the frame when the hammer was cocked. So if you had a Colt revolver that had a really tight cylinder gap, and Colt had a lot of really tight cylinder gaps, it was basically for the civilian market. If you had one where the gap was like, a little bigger, like maybe 4 to 6 thousandths of an inch, it was for jacketed bullets. So it was a police revolver. Most people didn't want that. They wanted a tighter fitment. So they thought that they'd be more accurate, and Colt has more of a twist in their barrel than Smith & Wesson does. So these guys are expensive, and they wanted a cheaper alternative, for concealed carry. Because during that time, the stun-nose revolver was the hot rod for concealed carry. And Colt had a lot of agents that they made for law enforcement, which was an aluminum frame D-frame revolver. This is, like I was saying, a C-frame. So this is all metal. It's like a D-frame, only it's longer. It's got a full tang. A D-frame is less than that. So when you see like the Colt Diamondbacks of the period, or I don't think they existed in 1950, but they had like the frame of the C frame, only the tang didn't go all the way down. It was reduced, and if they wanted a full grip, they would just, they would extend the grip, and you would see this huge block spacer kind of thing. It wasn't really a spacer, but they compensated for the lack of tang material so that they could then, use the same tooling to continue on with the snub nose line. But both of those guys are pretty expensive, the Smith & Wesson and the Colt. Agencies went with either or, depending on their flavor. But Charter Arms approached the scene to take on the Colt, and they did it with an old style frame to build on, like an old style concept. So they have like this open frame, and they like to say it's a one-piece frame, but it's not exactly true, So a lot of the hardware store brand revolvers that you could buy of the day, the HR, the Eagle, the Charter Arms, they had this one-piece design, and they would put the internals into it, and they'd use screws, and they would use pins. So the screws would come loose, so you had to use a type of thread locker on it. Not too cool, because screws like to come loose on revolvers, especially when you carry them. Even if it is concealed carry, those screws do work themselves loose. And then they kind of like to wiggle out at the range. It's not uncommon to drop a cylinder out of a revolver when you go to load, because the yolk screw had backed out. So those are topics for another video, but Charter Arms came up with a lightweight design intentionally to rival the Colt market. And they came up with, there were 38 specials, and they're 44s, like the Bulldog. Okay, now that we got that Colt out of the way, we could talk about what made the Charter Arms, so popular amongst law enforcement, and some of the design features that were revolutionary to the firearms world. So when you went into a gun shop, and you're like, hey, I need a self-defense gun, and I don't think Taurus was around, I don't know when Rossi came out, but Charter Arms was the low-end gun that they would try to sell to you. And the frame was much like Eagle and H&R, I think HR, something like that. Those guns that you could get at the hardware store, that didn't carry the Colts or the Smith & Wessons because they were too high end. It was kind of like the blue collar gun, if you will. Some of the professionals call them Saturday night specials, which happens to be throwaway guns. They're designed, for one reason and bought for one reason. But I wouldn't say that, but they had that name, Saturday Night Special. So they have this one-piece frame design where parts go into this one-piece frame. Through the frame, not a side plate, and then it's pinned in. There's another pin there, I think, and then there's a screw back here. The aluminum trigger guard makes the frame tang for the grip. And ordinarily, there's a little bit of play there. When you look at it, you can see the metal contrast where the aluminum, grip part of the frame comes up. So you get cut right here when you shoot. You cut the web in your hand. And so you want to be able to get a grip that covers that back strap on a Charter Arm, so it's good for you. Feels like slide bite. So that's one thing I do not like. But most of the guys that bought these things, they chopped the hammer spur off, and they wanted to do all that undercover custom work. So it was a cheaper alternative. If it went bang at work, that's what they did. They didn't want to do it to an expensive Colt or Smith & Wesson. They had a lot of value in those guns. One of the talking points was that they had a drawbar, hammer safety in here, trigger pin block, whatever you want to call it, that nobody else had. It was pretty innovative. And give me a sec here. Oh, did that fall in? There we go. Most of the revolvers did not have that, and I think Charter Arms was the first to invent that. What you see over that firing pin. So when the hammer hits that plate, it pushes the firing pin. gun goes off. So that hammer has to be all the way back. So, if you fumble or something, because, some of the gun instructors would say that having a hammer on the back, you could warn somebody and have additional steps before you got to the trigger pull, which, depending on what state you live in, could be a problem because if you're taking steps like that, it could be pretty premeditated and things can fall into a second-degree murder charge if it goes south at the trial. But I'm just saying, it's kind of a stupid talking point, but there's a lot of dumb things in the industry that come out. And the more I talk about guns, you're gonna hear what they are. So hopefully the industry can change their BS. But that's what that is, and it took off. So Revolvers started to use this firing pin safety device here to prevent accidental hammer falls. And that was kind of attractive for people that wanted to chop the hammer spur so it wouldn't catch on their clothing when they concealed carry. So Charter Arms sold a lot of revolvers. My first one wasn't that great. Finish was horrid. It had pits in the barrel. I said to myself, there ain't no way in heck I'm going to buy another Charter Arms. I'd have to be crazy. Because the back plate here is staged. So your rounds are typically floating around in the cylinder. If it's like a 38 or a 44, 44 short, it floats up this platform. It's not very smooth. And that puts a lot of stress on the ratchet star, causes the revolver to fall out of time. I had a buddy that had a 44 that fell out of time all the time. Sent it back to the factory after the second time he sold it. Was not happy about it. So when they offered the Pitbull line that has this detent extractor that holds the rounds by the rim, the inside recess, all I gotta do is just pop it in there. Whoa. Get in there, dude. One thing about auto-loading rounds is very seldom are they crimped. And this one here could really use a crimp. You see that? There we go. It's in. So the rounds don't slip back and forth like revolver bullets do. It's not going to come out of there until I pull the extractor or push down the extractor star like that. When I saw that for the first time, it was actually on a Korth revolver. It was an Air Marshal. I wanted one so bad because you could put a J-frame grip on it. J-frame grip. And as soon as it come out, it was off the market. And then I saw that Charter Arms had a detent extractor. And I wonder if it was their design and their patent. Because I don't see no Sky Marshals around. I really would like one. I know those things are way more expensive, but if so, that's part of the Charter Arms innovation that revolutionized the firearms industry. Once again, they pulled something off. People thought like barrels mattered, rifle twists, whether it was a Colt, Smith & Wesson, whatever. So they'd put like Colt barrels on Smith & Wesson K-frames and they'd call it something, or they'd put like, they'd retool the gun for their particular barrel. And Charter Arms did something a little crazy. They have this, I think there's 11 lands and grooves in there. I'm not sure exactly how many. I just know that they have a lot more than anyone else out there in the entire industry. And I don't know if it gives better accuracy or what have you, but it's real easy to find out who shot who when they pull the bullet out because it have more grooves on it. But Charter Arms isn't really particularly known for exceptional accuracy or any kind of accuracy for that matter. I'd like to know how accurate these guys can be. If there's somebody out there that wants to do a video and do some analysis on them. But yeah. Anyway, there we go. I had to fix their front sight here because it was very rough, and I ended up putting some orange filler in there. I'll show you guys how to do that in another video someday. The way that you typically shoot a revolver, isn't like a pistol. You draw a bead on your target. So you got this big, long front blade. So you see your target, you draw a line down it like that, you get it right there, and then you shoot. So revolver front sights were always long up until recent times where they're not. It's probably a step backwards because you've got firearms instructors teaching fundamentals that are really stupid. And that's why, because you can't index your target if your front sight's too damn tiny. Oh, I had to stop myself there. I was sort of going on a big, long cussing rant about how they don't teach people how to shoot revolvers the way that they used to. But there you have it. That's your charter arms. If you want one, I would get one like a Pitbull in 40 Smith & Wesson, or maybe 45 ACP, primarily because Smith & Wesson 40 is a rather unique caliber, and you can accomplish a lot with it depending on the bullet weight that you choose. So when 38 Special was designed, they went with a heavy bullet, short case to up the cut pressure to get that thing to perform. Well, 40 Smith & Wesson was kind of along the same ideology. He took a 10mm projectile and shortened the case, and they put faster burning powder in there, and voila, awesome results, right? So if I was to get a revolver that would take pistol rounds, I would go with a 40 Smith & Wesson, but I would also look at the bullets to make sure that they have a crimp on them, because as you can see, the Federal Hydroshock here still kind of built out, and this was like commercially available ammunition. So if you don't reload, you might have problems with factory ammo. But when you use any ammo in this type of revolver, you don't have to worry about the nose of the bullet or the ogive getting all messed up. So you can use some pretty thin tipped hollow points that spread like butter, unlike you can in a pistol. So you have some more options. If you get into reloading, or you find some weird special bullets that would mush on a feed ramp, you won't have to worry about it with your Charter Arms Pitbull. But all right, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll get some more content out there when I get a chance. All right, see ya.